Jay here for Stretford Paddock, and this is a bit of a different video. It's a bit of a reaction vid to the news that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has been confirmed as a part owner of Manchester United. He's also giving a series of interviews, so we thought, who should we chat to about this? So we've got myself and Joe Smith here. Hello. As always, even though we don't always do reaction vids, you're usually with me on a video.
I'm here somewhere, aren't I?
Yeah.
Yep.
Are you excited?
I'm very excited, yeah. There's a lot to get into. I mean, he's talked about everything, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Even, doubting the existence of Sheikh Jassim.
A little bit of shade being thrown as well off Mr. Ratcliffe, or Sir Jim, as he likes to be called. Also, we thought it'd be good to chat to Steve from the 1958. We spoke to you a few times. Yep. Yeah, and we thought we'd get your take on not just the comments and the quotes of Sir Jim Ratcliffe in his interviews, but just what you make of this and the partial takeover and what your thoughts are on it as well. So make sure you are getting involved in all the chat and the comments. Also, there's a link to 1958 socials in the description as well, so go and give them a follow. Joe, I'll start with you. Yeah. We know now that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has got this 27.7% of the club, which is going to rise, I think, to 28.9% by the 31st of December, although there's probably still people out there who think Sheikh Jassim is going to take over. Mm-hmm. What do you make of that now? Are you sort of relieved? Are you excited? What's your thoughts on the fact that we now know he is a part owner of Manchester United, and from what we see, he's sort of moving things forward in terms of making decisions?
I think they've done a very good job of getting decisions made almost before the official announcement. Yep. So now, not just are we getting these interviews, but we've already got a new CEO, we've got multiple new members on the board. Dan Ashworth is sort of waiting in the wings. He's been put on gardening leave and he's leaving Newcastle. They've got something to show. They've actually, in all honesty, they've got more to show for the 2 months that they've been knocking about than the Glazers have for the 18 years that they've been knocking about. Like, obviously, in terms of winning things and stuff like that, we haven't seen anything like that yet. Nothing has happened on that front. But the 27%, to me, could have gone two very different ways. When we heard that the Glazers wouldn't be selling up, they're not leaving, they're still going to be there, there's that initial, like, for fuck's sake, they're still here. Yeah. But in terms of what a 27% investment could be, full control of, seemingly pretty much full control of the football inside, and we're seeing as well, they're the ones who have been hiring the CEOs, they've got control on the board to a certain extent as well. That's about as good a 27% kind of influence as I could have expected, and probably more than I would have expected, because the Glazers could have easily sold 27% and said, we still hold all the control, you just get a bit of money if we do. But actually, they're taking a lot more control of things than I thought they would, which is the biggest positive for me in all of this, because just, Jim Ratcliffe putting some money in the Glazers' pocket isn't exciting, but seeing all these changes that we've already seen, there is some excitement there for me. I am excited by that.
Yeah, no, I hear you, definitely. And so far, I'm hearing the right noises, I'm seeing the right things. Obviously, I'm not going to say this is it, we're back and everything's great, but certainly it's been a massive improvement on what we're used to, at least from a publicity point of view, if nothing else, from some of the sort of the comments and quotes that Sir Jim Ratcliffe's come out with, that we'll get into a little bit later on. Steve, obviously, you've been heavily involved in the anti-Glazer protests. We've covered this for a little while now, going back to not just when the 58 started, but before then as well. The Glazer protests go back to 2005. I know you've been part of a lot of that as well, and I've been at many of those protests myself. What do you make of this so far, with what you've seen from Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe?
It's one of them where you're sort of pessimistically optimistic, if that is even a term. Yeah. You've got that Glazer dough. It's like that scene out of Porky's, isn't it, where you've got one. Go on, do it. The devil on one side and the...
Showing your age now, Steve. Porky's reference there. Yeah. You just lost half the audience there.
Sorry. Anyway, moving on. Yeah. So we're all tainted by the Glazers. Yeah. And for me, there's still that. Okay, right. But as you said yourself, Joel, the way now things are being put in place and people are being put into place that are, I would say, certainly, if not top of class, the best that are available, is, it's very encouraging, and time will tell.
Do you still stand on that position that I know you've spoken a lot in the past, and the 58, and you personally, you wanted the Glazers gone, a full sale meant the Glazers going. Do you still hold that sort of hope, and is that still what you want to see and what you're going to continue to push for?
Glazers own 69% of the football club, and we've always advocated that we want them to sell that whole 69%.
Yep.
And that doesn't change. We can be giddy in this moment, and in fairness, we're probably due a bit of giddiness because it's been few and far between. But that message is, I'm hoping that there's quite a bit of stuff that's come out today, and I would like still to see a bit of a roadmap in the future and how that changes, as in the Glazers becoming less. I believe, is there another 100 million due in December, which would then take his stake up even higher.
I think it's 28.9% his stake will go to, as you said, when he invests another $100 million, I think it is.
In terms of a roadmap, I completely agree with that. I think he did mention in these interviews that he's done one with the BBC, he did one with a Dutch publication as well, slightly earlier in the day, and he's done one with Man United officially as well. So there's a lot of quotes of Jim Ratcliffe coming out today. He mentioned about news coming on the stadium front, which is obviously not a full roadmap, but one of the key things next week, he said. So that's obviously what we'll find out more then, but it seems, and people are sort of hinting that he's sort of leaning towards a new stadium, which is something, not surprisingly maybe, but you're quite keen on a new stadium, aren't you?
I'm scared to say this because I get pellets from. I'm scared to say it was Steve sat next to me as well, because I know it's like not a popular opinion, especially amongst match-going fans. Listen, I love Old Trafford. I've had some of the greatest moments of my entire life at Old Trafford. I just think Old Trafford isn't fit for purpose, and I don't know how many times you can revamp it before you have to sort of almost admit defeat and go, look, let's just build a new stadium. I think your history comes with you. I think those memories will still stay with me. I don't think they're going to go anywhere, especially if it's on the same site as Old Trafford. Now, I know we don't know the details of that, but if that is the case, then I can live with that.
That does make a big difference, doesn't it? You're still getting the same tram, you're still parking in the same place, you're still going to the same pub, you're still walking most of the same walk. All of that sort of build up to the game is the same. Yeah. That does make a difference. What's your thoughts on potential new stadium, whether it be or a redevelopment? What's your preference?
It's the same, and you've got your head in your heart, and I think everybody's heart doesn't want to see Old Trafford disappear. I mean, I suppose in an ideal world, bearing in mind that if what we've seen is led to be, if that is correct, where that you've got this new stadium sitting adjacent to Old Trafford, then, is there the potential to reduce Old Trafford, keep the tunnel, keep everything else, because the ladies' team still don't have a stadium.
No, it's a joke, that.
Maybe the academy team, and redevelop that again in the future. So keeping the history around that, but then, because, Old Trafford is not fit for purpose, we have to be totally honest, the concourse is everything. We joke about the leaky roof, but it's fallen way behind times, to the point where FIFA don't even give it a sniff anymore. And there's that future revenue as well, aside from football. With City have just built a new indoor arena next to their
arena.
Yeah. So it's it's all future income, I suppose, for the business. But from the football side of things, a new stadium, okay, but keep Old Trafford in some form if it's feasible. That's your fairy tale for me.
Yeah, there's some. Yeah, I agree. There's some quotes doing the rounds. Obviously, I won't get into some of them. One of the ones that's mildly amusing, to be honest with you, is the one about Sheikh Jassim. Now, I saw this and we were chatting about this. I thought it might be a joke.
I did. I had to double check because it was
a joke.
Obviously, it came from these interviews, but I saw it was Ben Jacobs who I saw tweet it, journalist. And I thought, is that his real account? Because now you can have a blue tick on anyone. I thought, the O in Jacobs is going to be a 0 or something. I'm going to be
someone's messing about.
And it wasn't. It's real.
Yeah, so Jim Ratcliffe said about Sheikh Jassim, still nobody's ever seen him, actually. The Glazers never met him. I'm not sure he even exists. I mean, that's, quite sort of tongue-in-cheek, shall we say, at least. I mean, I didn't expect him to say these things, did it? And it's quite sort of shows how bullish he's been as well about what's going on, that he's got part of the club now, and he's sort of, I think that's an indication that we can all just move on from the Sheikh Jassim.
Yeah, episode. I mean, I'm sure there'll be a small amount of the fan base that'll resent him for that comment, that sort of hung on every word of Sheikh Jassim. But, you know, he's kind of factually correct as well. But, you know, I think for me, he does seem to be plowing along now. You know, I mean, as Joe said earlier, he's made quite a lot of changes been made prior to them even signing on the dotted line, and now it has. If things keep going at the pace that they started, and I think one of Jim's quotes were, you know, as of today, things will pick up.
Things will accelerate, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we shall see.
Just on a timescale as well, I think he said on the challenge that's ahead, he said it's a 2 to 3 season challenge to get the organisation and environment right, get the performances on the field right, and win football matches. Do you think that's fair, Joe? 2 to 3 seasons? Because, listen, I'm delusionally optimistic at times, and you know, I'd love to say we're going to win the Champions League next season. We might not be in it, but realistically, you look at how far we're behind certain teams like City and Liverpool and maybe even Arsenal as well.
Yeah.
You look at some of the process you're getting in. Yeah, you might bring in a new CEO, you might bring in a new sporting director, but they're not going to turn up for you on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, they're not the one putting the ball in the back of the net.
So it's not like, straight away you start getting instant results. So does that seem quite sort of reasonable to you, 2 to 3 years? Is that what you're thinking?
It does seem reasonable, because if you look at any team that's had a sustained period of not winning or challenging for the Premier League, none of them that, you know, stumbled upon or sort of recruited the regime that ended up winning them the league. You look at City originally, you look at Liverpool, even Arsenal now, if you want to include them in that sort of, I know they haven't won it, but they've challenged sort of 2 years in a row. None of those people did it instantly. You know, it took City 4 years with all the investment in the world. It took Liverpool, what was it, Klopp's 4th season he won the league?
Yeah, he had a few.
2015 he arrived.
It took him a while to get going, didn't it? He lost 3 finals, didn't he, on the spin?
Yeah,
at Liverpool.
Let's even if you include the Champions League, it still took him 3 or 4 years to do that. You look at Arteta, it's taken him 3 years to do that. So no one's ever come in, and except Ranieri, but that was sort of an anomaly, and turned things from a team that isn't used to winning the Premier League to a team that is used to winning it in a season. That's never happened. So to think we would be able to do that is unfair. And also the other thing that I quite like about that, it takes a little bit of the pressure off. And at some points, especially managers at United, I think, is this thing of you have to get better every single season until you win the league. And if you don't, you're sacked. And I think at times, maybe Van Gaal's probably the best example, where maybe if we'd have given someone a bit longer or a bit more time, and under the Glazers probably wouldn't have happened anyway, but it doesn't necessarily go 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st. You look at Arsenal, they've gone up and down, finished 8th a couple of times. You look at Sir Alex, it was 2nd, 11th, 13th. Like it takes a while, and it's not always in one direction. So if he says 2 or 3 years, that then allows for Ten Hag, who I think he also mentioned about, we've had a lot of managers in the last 10 years and none of them have been able to succeed. Maybe that's because the environment isn't right for managers to succeed, sort of backing him a little bit. But it also says, you've got a bit of time here. You don't have to win something this season, and if you're not challenging, then you're gone. And I think maybe a manager, if they're going to really turn this ship around, might need a couple of years to do that, because we've seen it can't happen in a season.
No.
Enough managers have been sacked for us to say United aren't turning this around in 1 year. So whilst obviously I would love to win the league next season, and I wouldn't say it's impossible, I think giving them a bit longer is probably a good thing for everyone involved, really.
Just in terms of what Sir Jim Ratcliffe's saying, another thing he said is we've got a lot to learn from our noisy neighbour and the other neighbour. They are the enemy at the end of the day. There is nothing I would like better than to knock them both off their perch. I mean, just from the fact he's giving these interviews, he's speaking, I think he's spoken to Must, he's spoken to some of the fans for him. He seems to at least be, from a PR point of view, saying the right things and sort of reaching out a little bit. Is that something that's impressed you, or do you look at that and go, well, these are sort of, it's easy to use these words and to do these things? I want to see a bit more.
Yeah, it is easy. It is easy to throw stuff out there and tell people what you think they want to hear.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's putting his face out there and having the conversations, is, again, you know, he's done more in 2 months than the Glazers have done in 19 years. So, you know, he's making all the right noises, and hopefully we continue. And there is, as I said earlier, there is always that Glazer doubt in the back of your head. That, you know, we've had it before, promises from the Glazers after the European Super League protests and whatnot, where they promise things and never happen. So we shall see. We shall see. A bit of optimism.
I think that's fair. Yeah. I do, because I'm not going to sit here and go, this is it, or our prayers are answered. Sir Jim Ratcliffe, you know, is going to solve everything. But in terms of what he could have done so far, I don't think he could have done much more in terms of saying the right things and putting the right things in place. That's impressed me, but I want to see how it pans out, because like you, I've got that whole thing of we've kind of been here before a little bit, not quite to this extent, but we've been here before where you've had, you know, Joel or Avram, I forget which one, I don't really care, saying, well, we're going to talk to the fans now, we're going to do this, we're going to bring in you've had Woodward or whoever gone, we're going to bring in a director of football, don't worry, we're going to bring in and it's not really materialised. I just feel this is more likely to happen than it did under the previous regime.
Can I ask you something? Because I've been thinking, like, obviously what we've had under the Glazers is just basically just neglect, innit? Essentially, it's neglect is what they've achieved, and they've sucked as much as they can out of Man United. In terms of on the pitch, when we talk about United getting back to where we should be and stuff, what would you deem as success? Do you think a club that, you know, with a good manager can have, you know, I hate to use them as the example, but Liverpool have only won the league once under Klopp, and yet this period under Klopp would undoubtedly be a success for Liverpool fans? Or do you think we need to be like the Bayern Munich or Real Madrid, where either every year or every other year you're really properly challenging? You know, would we settle for just being a team that is a very good, consistent team, or does it have to be almost like if we don't get back to the dominance we had under Sir Alex, then Sir Jim is a failure? What do you think is the sort of the actual goal and the expectation here? Because in my head, I want what we had under Sir Alex, but then you sort of think, actually, is that really possible? Or do you think Man United, we should be doing what Madrid do or Barca do, which is if you're not winning it, you're second? Do you think that should be the expectation and the standard we hold him to?
I think certainly I'd like to see after the next few years us challenging every season. You might not win it every season. I think it's a bit. I know I said when we were chatting the other week about would you settle for what Klopp's had at Liverpool, 1 year title in 9 years, whatever, would you be happy with that? I want a bit more than that, but I want us to be challenging consistently, and I think that's possible. I think once you get the right structure in place, the right people in place, because we are the biggest club certainly the biggest club in Britain, if not one of the biggest clubs or the biggest club in the world. We have got an academy, we have got the resources to build and to make us successful on the pitch. If you get it all right, you start getting it right, then you can have sustained success. Because City, don't forget, they've had success under Mancini, they won the league, under Pellegrini, they won the league, and obviously Pep Guardiola's taken them to another level. But it's not like it's all down to one man. No. Because I don't think Manuel Pellegrini is a genius. I think he's a good manager. I don't think Roberto Mancini is a genius. But because they had such a good structure in place, it enabled that success. Chelsea, to a lesser degree, I know they've done it slightly sort of, you know, now it's the wheels have come off, but for a long time,
for a good 10 years there,
they won 2 Champions Leagues and 5 titles, whatever it is. You can't ignore that. So I think United can challenge every year at the sort of top level, not necessarily doing a Bayern Munich or Barcelona. I don't think that's sustainable in certainly in England anymore. But if we're challenging every year, I think that could be deemed a success. I don't know, Steve, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think Pep nailed it on the head, and you know, as much as it pains you to even, you know, use their terms, but you know, everybody from the club owner down to Pep, everybody's singing from the same song sheet, and you know, you put that in place. For me, is priority, because we haven't had it like ever. Is you get that in place, and then the team comes next. And I think the way the Premier League's going at the minute, Klopp leaving. Hopefully, Alonso goes to Bayern, Gerrard to Liverpool.
Oh, please!
That'd be so good.
That'd be like a new signing for us. That
the 115 charges get put into place. City gone, so we could be dominant through default, but hey, we'll take it. I would.
Yeah, we could just bang average and win the league, just because everything else it's all gone belly up for everyone else. Another thing he said, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, which I quite like, is. He said at Ineos, we don't mind people making mistakes. Okay, well, welcome to United then, get used to that. But don't make them a second time. Yeah. We'll be less compassionate. We've made mistakes, and I'm very glad we made those mistakes before to arrive at Manchester United. Yeah. There's a little hint there to the ruthlessness. There's like, look, you can make a mistake, that's so acceptable. Don't keep doing it though, because we ain't going to stomach it. Yeah. Which We do need a bit of that, don't we?
Yeah.
You can't be Mr. Nicey, let's all hold hands around the maypole. You have to have a bit of, look, if we're going to get to the top, we have to have a best-in-class approach. Bringing in the right people, yes, you might get up, there might be some teething problems or things that don't quite go right, but we're not going to keep making mistakes. We're not going to settle for that because, let's face facts, post-Alex Ferguson, we have.
Yeah,
we've made a lot of mistakes, and we haven't learned from any of them.
No, even with managers, I almost struggle to criticise the managers individually because I think that the system they've been in. But we've obviously not hired a manager that's won us the title. So if you want to call that a mistake, it's a repeated mistake. But I think the thing with the mistake is a mistake suggests that it was out of character. If you do it all the time, it's not a mistake. It's just your level. And I think if we buy 10 players over the next 2 or 3 transfer windows, if 7 of them are good signings that seem to work and 2 of them are okay, 1 of them's a failure, that's one thing. But if you buy 10 and 7 of them are shit, or 7 of them don't work out like we've had over the last sort of 10 years, then it's not just a mistake, is it? That's just that Ed Woodward isn't good enough. That's that, Richard Arnold or whoever else isn't good enough, and that the scouting or whoever you want to blame it on, it isn't good enough. If you get all these new people in, and it's great, Dan Ashworth is exciting, Omar Berrada is exciting, whoever, but if they fail to improve Man United and they keep making mistakes, well then we'll get someone else in. It's not about who you are and what's your CV's like. It's what can you do for Man United. So I do like that. Obviously, I don't want to be going through a new manager every 8 months because we've lost 3 games in a row. Yeah. And if it goes down that, he says at another point, I don't know if we've got the quote there, but how he's not a particularly patient person, which excites me on one hand in terms of getting the right people in, but then you think, okay, well if we finish 4th, is the manager going to get sacked? But holding people to a high standard is something every top industry, every top organisation in the world does, and if we're not doing that, then we're not going to be, a top team.
It's about setting expectations, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you make it clear, as Sir Jim now, running the football side of on whatever else he's going to be in charge of, but he makes it clear to everybody, crystal clear, this is how we move forward.
Yeah.
And that rolls down to the manager, which to me actually takes a little bit of pressure off the manager because he's not having to second guess what the Glazers might want and what they don't want with his hands tied behind his back. So, managers, whether they've been good enough, I don't believe that every manager we've had has just turned into a failure because they've become crap.
No, I don't.
No, it's not possible.
It's structure, isn't it?
Do you know what? If there was 2 of them, if it had happened to 2 of them, you think, okay, possible. But the amount of managers we've gone through, Van Gaal, great CV, Mourinho, Ole did a great job, and then it's the same pattern and it falls off. And I think what I want to see, first and foremost, when it comes to transfer windows, is football players signed on the sporting value and not the commercial value, which is where we've always fallen.
It's so crazy when you say these things out loud. And rival fans were looking and go, well, obviously. That's, but like football must come first. Well, yeah, obviously. But that's not what we've had for the last 18 years. We got away with it for a number of years because of Fergie. Under Glazers, that's never been the priority.
Ed Woodward bragging, we can be shit on the pitch and we still make loads of cash. Like, what? How is that like something you want to tell the public? It don't even matter if we win or not. We're still making money. We're still happy.
That was something that I know from speaking to some people at United that was filtered through to the coaches and the staff and everyone. And imagine hearing that from basically your boss telling you that. Listen, we could talk about what's going on with Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos, and we will talk about it a little bit later as well. We've got more videos coming up on that. Just one final question for you, Steve. If Sir Jim Ratcliffe, he's met with Mus and everyone, he wanted to speak to you and he wanted to speak to 58, is that a conversation you'd be willing to have?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Why not? Why wouldn't we?
Yeah, good. No, you never know. He's been, he's been chatting to everyone. And if he wants to come on this channel, he's more than welcome. Go and check out 1958. There's a link in the description to their socials. You know where to find him. Go and check him out. We'll be back later on as well. I've been Jay Motti. That's been Joe Smith. That's been Steve from the 1958. This has been a reaction video to Sir Jim Ratcliffe taking over part of Manchester United Football Club. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.